Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, for whichever part of your day was best to watch this presentation. My name is Haley Martins, and today we'll be talking about epilepsy. During this presentation, we will talk about what epilepsy is, facts and statistics of epilepsy, characteristics of epilepsy, special considerations to take when working with someone who has epilepsy, 2 topics related to epilepsy, and throughout this presentation there will be 2 activities for you to complete.
Epilepsy is a broad term used to describe a brain disorder that causes seizures. People are diagnosed with epilepsy when they have had 2 or more seizures. A seizure is a sudden surge of electrical activity in the brain. They affect how a person appears or acts for a short period of time. In many cases, the cause of epilepsy is unknown, but it can be caused by an illness, brain injury, or abnormal brain development. It is diagnosed with brain scans like an EEG or an MRI. Unfortunately, there is no cure for epilepsy. However, there are medications that can control seizures. If medication doesn't work, there are other options. One option would be epilepsy surgery, which is the removal of a brain lesion, brain lobe, or portion of a brain lobe. Another option would be an implemented device, such as a vagus nerve stimulator, which sends regular, mild pulses of electrical energy to the brain. It is like a pacemaker for the brain. It is placed in the left chest wall while electrodes attach to the vagus nerve. Epilepsy is the 4th most common neurological disorder that affects people of all ages. 65 million people around the world have epilepsy. 3 million people in the United States have epilepsy. Every 1 in 26 person in the U.S. will develop epilepsy at some point in their life. There are 150,000 new cases of epilepsy in the United States each year. 1/3 of people live with uncontrollable seizures because no available treatment works for them. 6 out of 10 people have no idea what the cause of their epilepsy is. Okay, it's time for our first activity. Are you excited? When I say go, I want you to pause the video and go to the link. I have provided the link in the drop box and in the description of this video. The game today will be Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? When you finish the game, I want to know how many questions you got right and the answer to question number 4. Ready? Go! Great, you're back. Now let's talk about characteristics of epilepsy. Generalized seizures are produced by the entire brain. There are 6 subgroups to generalized seizures. The first one being grand mal, which is unconsciousness, absence, brief loss of consciousness, myoclonic, isolated jerking movements, clonic, repetitive jerking movements, tonic, muscle stiffness and rigidity, atonic, which is a loss of muscle tone. Partial seizures are produced by a small area of the brain. One subgroup is simple, which is where your awareness is retained. In simple, there are 3 different subgroups. The first one being simple motor, which is a jerking, muscular rigidity, spasms, and head turning. Simple sensory, unusual sensations affecting either the vision, hearing, smell, taste, or touch. Simple psychological, which is memory or emotional disturbance. Complex, which is impairment of awareness. There are such characteristics such as lip smacking, chewing, fidgeting, walking, and other repetitive involuntary but coordinated movements. Partial seizures with secondary generalization, which are symptoms that are initially associated with preservation of consciousness that then evolves into a loss of consciousness and convulsions. If the age of onset is earlier, such as when the individual is a child, cognitive function would be affected more than if the individual was an adult. If an individual has epilepsy for more than 30 years, it significantly lowers their full-scale IQ scores. Functional intelligence may be affected from varying degrees of memory loss or difficulty remaining focused. This is a direct result of popular medications that are used to control seizures. When working with a child who has epilepsy, there are 3 very important things you must always do. The first one is safety. When it comes to safety for a student with epilepsy, you should always make sure you know what physically active movements the student has issues accomplishing. Knowing their limitations will allow you to make a safe environment for them and everyone around them. All children who have epilepsy are different. Some children may have a safety concern called drop seizures. A drop seizure is when a child with epilepsy falls to the ground without any signs. Children who have a history of drop seizures might wear protective gear like a helmet, elbow pads, and knee pads. The second thing that you must do is modify the activities to the child's ability. When you modify the activities, you want to make sure that the child has the same goal as the original activity so the outcomes are all the same. The third thing is using cues to gain a student's attention. There are 3 different types of cues. There are visual cues, verbal cues, and physical assistance. You should preferably do all 3 cues at once to hopefully allow the student to become more focused and listen to directions. Proximity control is where the physical education teacher stays within a close location of a student during the activity. This enables the student to remain alert. This also allows the physical education teacher to provide assistance when needed. Another very important thing to remember is that you should never force the child to do an activity that causes stress. Stress has been known to cause seizures. When it comes to video game-induced seizures, it is very important to understand that it is not a syndrome. It can happen to anyone, and you don't have to have a history of seizures. Now, a video game-induced seizure is caused by brightly flashing images. It is one of the most common forms of photosensitive epilepsy. It is more likely to happen to males between the ages of 11 and 19. Facilitating factors of VGS is fatigue, sleep deprivation, and prolonged playing. There are 4 simple ways you can prevent VGS from happening. Monitor your behavior and symptoms while playing a game. If a game makes you upset and gives you symptoms, you should stop playing that game. You can reduce the intensity of exposure, and you can use special protective lenses like gaming glasses. The ketogenic diet is a high-fat, low-carb, controlled protein diet that has been used for treatment of epilepsy since the 1920s. This diet is intended as an option for children with hard-to-control epilepsy. It can help reduce the number or severity of seizures and can have a positive effect on behavior. Someone is usually put on this diet when they have tried 2 medications that have not worked for them. Now that all talking is done, it is time for activity number 2. This time we're going to do a crossword puzzle. How this one will work is you'll write your answers down and you'll put them in the drop box. I hope you had fun and I hope you learned something. Thanks for watching. Now go do your crossword puzzle.